We've got barbecue back here. You're all invited. Welcome to the Sloopcast. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing pretty well. How are you doing today, Jared?
Not doing too bad. I forgot this. Why didn't I say the thing? That was the new tradition. That's a good tradition. I just went straight to the beer crack. I don't know why. Anyway.
Sounds like you just want to get right into it.
Kinda. Sounded good though. Yeah, it was good execution, if nothing else. At least on half of it. Oh, hey, look at me. I'm Ohio. I'm Miami. I only play good in the second half. Georgia. Georgia would have been a better joke for that. Damn it.
Yeah.
Because Miami waits to the fourth quarter to play good.
Week 10. Here we are, week 10 of Collegiate Chaos here, and after 2 weeks of nothing, I think Team Chaos hurt us, Jared.
Yeah.
Came full force in week 10.
Yeah, Team Chaos took a couple weeks off, but
we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 unranked beating ranked teams,
yeah.
and then I guess you could say two more
ranked team losses.
Lower ranked beat higher ranked teams.
Well, if you count Ohio State beating Penn, I mean, technically speaking, 4-3. I get it.
And SMU over Pitt.
Yeah, they were pretty closely ranked.
Mm-hmm. They were. Yep.
Yeah. Illinois, where Illinois was barely ranked, but they were still ranked. It counts. Kansas State, Iowa State, that's a big one. Clemson, that's a big one. Texas A&M, also a pretty big one. Didn't want to be ranked 11 this week. You don't get two 11s too often, and they both lost.
Yeah.
Was Illinois a fraud? Illinois is a team making good progress. I don't think any, of course, then again, I would have said the same thing about Indiana, but I don't think any of us were expecting that story to last the entire season. But like I said, I probably would have said the same thing about Indiana, and they're proving the version of me that said that wrong.
Yeah. But let's go and jump right into it here, Jared, because I think there's going to be, maybe it's not going to be a lot of movement, but
I think it's going to be a lot of movement. Kyle, sorry. I have
some movements here.
I have the Slip Pick scoreboard up.
You do. Yeah.
Wow.
I had a bad week. There. Yep.
I beat both you and Stuart. Stuart, who is suspiciously, after talking a lot of crap, not joining us for the live recording today. He talked a lot of crap and beat him by a game. I go 5-2 this week. You go 3-4. Stuart, our guest picker, goes 4-3 for the guests. I am now 1 game ahead on the guest pickers and 3 games ahead on you, Kyle. And in case
I got a few weeks left. I got to kick it into gear. I got to kick it into high gear.
Listen,
now.
it's just 3 weeks. That could happen in 1 week. Or excuse me, it's just 3 games that could happen in 1 week.
It could. Yep.
All right, now let's get to the tier. Oh, wait a minute. Kyle, we both hit on the Chaos Theory scoreboard this week. Unlike the last 2 weeks, there were correct answers aplenty this week.
Ole Miss was not one of them.
No. Again, Stuart talked a lot of crap, failed to deliver. Really just, wow. Come on, Stuart. I got 16 points predicting Texas A&M would lose. You got 2 points predicting Illinois would lose. That puts me just 6 points behind you on the Chaos Theory scoreboard. You have 38. I have 32. The guest pickers have 17. So Odin, Cousin Jay, we have Zach, of course, and Dinger are our I say last 4, but there could, in theory, be an unranked matchup during championship week, I guess.
Most likely not, but could there?
There probably won't be a lot to choose from, so we might
be one.
We might all be one, like the Mountain West game. It'll be the Mountain West game. We'll all have to pick Boise to lose.
Yes, there you go. That's what it is.
All we have is 17. Yeah, you guys have hit twice. And Spikes, you did your part. You got one of them, and it was for the most points. So good job, Spikes. Everyone else,
carrying the load.
Yeah. All right, Kyle. Now let's get to the tier list.
All right. So let's just start from the top here. In S tier, Oregon dismantles Michigan, 38-17.
Yeah. We don't have the S tier in any particular order, but if we did, Oregon would be first.
Yeah, Oregon just shut it down in that second half there. They were up. It was like 28-7 at one point. So yeah, just they didn't even need to try that second half there.
Yeah, they did sort of put it into neutral for the second half, which is fine. Yeah, it was Michigan did not have Will Johnson, but then again, Oregon lost Tess Johnson almost immediately in this game, which is an injury to keep an eye on because it didn't look great.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll see. Why does Michigan play Orgy? Desperation.
Yep. Georgia comes out with a narrow win.
Yeah.
It was closer than the 14-point win, but it was a close one. Georgia beats Florida 34-20. Georgia just letting some of these teams hang around here. Yeah,
they really have a bad habit of only showing up when they feel like it's a good game. Carson Beck especially has a really bad habit of throwing interceptions.
I mean, did he have, was it, no, yeah, 3. I knew it was at least 2. Yeah, 3 interceptions in this game.
And, we'll never know for sure. It's really easy to just say this. I kind of think that Florida might win this game had Lagway not gotten hurt. You lose you're already down a quarterback. Mertz was already hurt. Lagway, who had really sort of turned Florida around, then gets hurt. And so Florida had to go, and I don't even remember his name, to their third string walk-on quarterback, and it didn't go well. If they have Lagway, this game could have gone differently, but they didn't. Is it sad that Florida lost while Georgia turned the ball over 3 times? I don't know. How many times did Florida turn it over? It's not necessary. It doesn't necessarily matter that Georgia turned it over.
Just one.
So yeah, that's a +2, which isn't insurmountable, especially like I said, when your opponent is down to their third quarterback.
Yep. Right. Yep. So Georgia stays where they're at. Texas was on a bye week. They stay where they're at. And Ohio State with a much needed win on the road against a top 5 opponent here. Much needed win for this Ohio State team.
Yeah. Feels like Ryan Day specifically.
And I feel these 4 teams have just separated themselves from everybody else.
Quite frankly, at this point, I kind of feel like Oregon has separated themselves from everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't know. What point do we start talking about Notre Dame? They were on a bye week this week, but
they were, yeah.
So maybe that's not a conversation to have this week. Maybe we have that conversation next week. But, and quite frankly, and we'll find out the next 2 weeks. We have Indiana sitting right there.
Oh God, we're not going to find out. We're not going to find out next week. They play Florida State.
Excuse me. I said Miami. I know I said Miami. I meant to say Indiana. Indiana has so far avoided playing any of the elite defenses in the Big Ten. I would call those elite defenses Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, and Iowa.
Yep, but here they are next week though. They do. Indiana does come up with a win in East Lansing, 47-10. But yeah, they host the little brother, Michigan, next weekend.
So yeah, we'll find out about Indiana over the next 2 weeks, and we'll find out. I don't know what Will Johnson's status is. It would obviously be really helpful for Michigan if they had him back, but we'll find out. Like I said, Indiana's played really, really good football, especially on the offensive side this year. It'll be interesting to see what they do going up against Michigan, who, as we've stated a bunch of times, has a really good starting defense. Mm-hmm. You know, their defensive numbers might not line up a lot of the time because their defense gets worn out because their offense is inept and their defense, while having really good starters, isn't very deep. So if Michigan can do a little ball control, their defense can hold up. But that's a conversation for the Sloop Picks.
Miami comes up with a win over Duke, 53-31. The score
closer
was a little
than that sounds.
It was definitely a little deceiving as I'm trying to pull up the score real quick here. It was at one point, it was 28-17 after Duke scored the touchdown on their opening drive in the second half there. But after that, it was pretty much all Miami. Miami scored quickly a few times, and I'd say like middle to the end of the third quarter, Miami ran away with that and scored a bunch more points in the fourth quarter as well. But yeah, it was definitely close through 2.5 quarters in this game.
As Spike says, they were in fact on Chaos Watch. Like I did. Mm-hmm. If you're not a part of our Discord, you might not know what that means, but I send an alert out to the Discord users. Like if there's a game that, you know, looks like there's chaos brewing. If not, you should. Yeah. discord.thesloopcast.com. You know, if there's a game that looks like a big upset's coming, I ping the server and I let everyone know. One of the many services we provide on the Discord server. So yeah, it was, a lot. I mean, with Miami, it was a lot closer than it seemed. Miami is a team that plays with fire a lot this year, which to me keeps them out of S tier, which might be hypocritical with Georgia sitting in there with S tier as they do the same thing. I would say the difference is that Georgia has big time wins to sort of help negate that iffiness that they bring to lesser opponents, where Miami, I would say, does Miami have, what is Miami's best win right now? Because is it Louisville? Because I kind of want to say it's Louisville.
Might be Louisville. It really might be Louisville.
Yeah, but
so they have wins over Florida, Virginia Tech, Cal, Louisville, Florida State, and Duke.
It might be Florida.
And their final game, their final games is Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, and Syracuse.
And then the ACC title game, although we're not...
Which at this point, as it stands, of course, there's a lot of football to be played here, but they have a very, very favorable schedule. Yeah, it's SMU. How about that, though?
We'll get there. We're still in A tier. Of course, you know, they might be. We'll see. Boise had a weekday game, taking care of business. I think we're gonna have to have a conversation about like who we want to be our backups for Boise, are just in case break glass, in case something happens to Boise and we need a different conference champion to represent the group of 5 in the A tier.
So I think there's 3 other teams in my mind.
We'll get there though.
3 teams.
We'll get there.
I think there's 3 teams.
We'll get there.
Yeah. All right. BYU
was off this week.
I
still consider them the favorites in the Big 12 though. Nothing this week changes not only does nothing this week change my mind on that, but Iowa State loses, which we'll talk about a little bit later, which really helps to, make that even more likely.
Tennessee with a close win over Kentucky, but still in that talk of that being in that playoff bubble still. Well, actually not the bubble, barely making into the playoff.
Well, I think there's a good and a bad side of the bubble, right?
Yeah. Yes.
They're just on the inside of the bubble, not the outside of the bubble.
Tennessee stays where they're at.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
All right. 2 teams that were in A tier that lost this week: Texas A&M and Penn State.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Penn State game here. You lose by 1 score, 7 points to Ohio State, who's now ranked 3rd in the AP or coaches, which doesn't really matter right now. But still, it's one of the best losses by 1 score.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're still a playoff team.
Yeah. 100%.
In my mind, it's a 1 loss here. They're very favorable schedule to end the year here.
That being said, it does not feel super likely, although if I ran the numbers, maybe it's mathematically possible that they could get into the Big Ten championship game, but it doesn't feel likely at this point.
Ohio State has to lose once. And I don't even know what the tiebreaker would be with Indiana.
Well, no, Ohio State would have to lose twice. No. I'm sorry. You're right. You're right.
Ohio State would have to lose once, and Indiana has to lose once, maybe twice. I don't even know what that tiebreaker would be offhand with Penn State and Indiana.
Yeah, who do not play each other this year.
Nope. But yeah, Penn State plays Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland. I think just one semi-tough game in Minnesota on the road. And
Minnesota's playing a lot better now than they were at the beginning of the year.
4-game winning streak for Jared's Golden Gophers.
Not my Golden Gophers.
So Penn State stays where they're at. And honestly, like this, I know Penn State fans wanted to beat Ohio State here, but this might be a blessing for them. They can just win out and they're in the playoffs. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I believe so too. I haven't even looked at the AP. I saw there was conversation in Discord that Ohio State, a lot of people were sort of hoping Ohio State would jump Georgia. I don't care.
6th
is where Penn State fell to.
Yep.
So that would be what, behind Miami?
Yep. Behind Miami.
Yeah. Which is
fine.
Fine.
7th in the coaches.
The coaches is extra irrelevant now. Do not care. Texas A&M.
Which coach voted Georgia? One coach that voted Georgia for number 1. Doesn't matter.
It was Kirby Smart. If it wasn't Kirby Smart, it would be why can't I think of his name? The new Alabama coach from Washington. His name is totally floating my head at the moment. But yeah, that you want your 1 loss to be number 1, right?
Yep.
So Texas A&M got demolished. Got demolished by South Carolina.
You know what's funny though? They still have, right now, because they have one more
game
more
played.
Conference win than Tennessee. They're technically still seated second right now in the SEC.
Texas A&M?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. We kind of can't move them out of the playoff. Well, no, we can.
We could just put them in the bubble.
Yeah.
If we feel that
that's
they
definition
need to be out
of
there.
bubble. Interesting. So I think the question right now is who do we want in the final slot? We decided to keep Penn State. I totally agree with you. Who do we want in that final A slot? If for whatever reason this is the first time you're watching this show,
to me, Jared,
our S and A tiers are our playoff prediction, not prediction, but playoff status, playoff. I don't know what the correct word would be. If the year stopped now, the playoffs would be yada yada. So we need to have 12 teams combined between the S tier and the A tier. So to me, Kyle, Texas A&M, SMU, or Colorado?
To me right now, after week 10, I'd say swap Texas A&M and SMU round.
Woo.
SMU.
I'm going to let you have that. I don't know if I agree, but I'm going to let you have it.
That's my gut on that there.
Look at that. 2 ACC teams. Look at that. SMU's an ACC team. A thing I have to remind myself of every time we are recording. Hey, Jared, remember that SMU's in the ACC.
Yeah. Now, I'm not. I mean, you could argue that, maybe Alabama should be there. Maybe, yeah, you're right.
I mean, this was Texas A&M's first conference loss, yes?
It was, yes.
Yes. Alabama has 2 conference losses, yes?
They do.
If we're talking about being on the playoff bubble, and if we're talking about getting into the SEC championship game is a really big deal. That being said, we do have Texas in the S tier still. What are the SEC standings right now?
I'm glad you asked, Jared, because I have it right here for you.
And I tell you what, Kyle, you're going to tell us what those standings are right after this ad break. Really glad I happened to glance down at the clock. We are the Buckeye Sloopcast. You already know that. You can find all of our links at thesloopcast.com. Just like I'm about to rattle off a bunch of links. But if you need to find something I said and you're not about to write it down, just go to thesloopcast.com. It has a link to all of our other links. Okay, here are all the other links, though. Our Discord server, where you can come chat with us and other Ohio State fans, discord.thesloopcast.com. The video version of this podcast is found at youtube.thesloopcast.com, and including our archives going all the way back to when we first started doing a video version of this podcast. All of those can be found at youtube.thesloopcast.com. You can listen to the audio version of this on Spotify, spotify.thesloopcast.com, Apple Podcast, apple.thesloopcast.com. You can use our custom RSS feed, which can be found at rss.thesloopcast.com. Merch.thesloopcast.com for Sloopcast merch, and for just general celebration of Ohio clothing, you can go to 7071. That's 7071, 7071.thesloopcast.com. And if you want to avoid the ads you're about to hear, you can get your very own exclusive podcast feed with no ads on it by supporting us financially at patreon.thesloopcast.com for as little as $3 a month. Come join us. All right, Kyle. SEC standings.
Yeah, so there are 2 teams, 5-1, Georgia and Texas A&M.
Okay.
There's one team that's 4-1, and that's Tennessee. And then two teams that are 3-1, Texas and LSU.
Interesting. That's
so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 teams with one loss.
It's actually really hard to justify, honestly, even having Alabama in the bubble at this point. If we're being honest, Alabama's in the middle of the SEC right now.
But here's the thing. Like, you're going to have a lot of people in the committee there that's going to look at Alabama as a whole,
sure,
and still rate them high, still even rank them higher than Vanderbilt, who beat them.
Yeah, and Alabama does play LSU coming up, so they have the opportunity to knock off LSU. That would certainly give them a big boost. Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on the SEC for sure.
Yeah. I think if
how is Texas only played
Alabama does
SEC games?
LSU, I think that does catapult Alabama potentially up to a playoff team. But how I look at this right now, Jared, in our S&A tier, I think you're going to see a bunch of teams just going to be falling off eventually there.
Well, Kyle, we'd have 4 teams potentially falling off of our B tier today. Yeah. Like this is like the November chaos is the worst chaos.
It is. Yeah. So let's jump into that real quick. So Texas A&M, we moved from A to B tier. Army smash. Army still 8-0.
Yeah.
Alabama was on a bye week this week, so they stay right there on the bubble.
Sure.
Colorado also on the bubble and was also on a bye week.
And also LSU.
And LSU was also on a bye week as well.
So listen, straight up,
I guess it's good to be on a bye week last week.
If you were in our B tier last week, you either were on a bye week, lost, or were SMU. Straight up. Those were the 3 categories.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And by the way, SMU played Pitt, who was also in the B tier. One of them had to win.
Mm-hmm. All right, so teams you moved off to the side here. Jared has Iowa State, who did lose, one of Team Chaos's victims. Lost to Texas Tech 23-22. Now,
it's their first loss of the year.
First loss of the year. They do not play Colorado. Wow. They're pretty much good. They're pretty much tied over the conference at 4-1. Colorado is 6-2. I don't know what Big 12 tiebreakers are, but
so BYU's first in the Big 12, and Colorado and Iowa State are currently tied.
Both 4-1 in conference. Yep. But Colorado does have that second loss. Again, I don't know what their tiebreaker is.
Okay. So, I mean, I think it's pretty easy to assume that
got to stay in the bubble. They got to stay in the bubble.
I would assume, I think it typically, we're going to look up the Big 12, but typically it's conference record, head to head, then overall record, I would say is like typically how it goes. But yeah, let's just, I say we keep, it's their first loss. It's their first conference loss. I say we keep Iowa State in the A tier, or excuse me, the B tier.
Yeah, I think they stay in the B tier. Yep.
Clemson picks up their first conference loss and their second season loss. I don't know, Kyle, how do you feel about Clemson's future moving forward? And by the way,
this is their first conference loss.
Yeah,
this is their first conference loss.
It is,
but they do not play. They do not play Miami. They do not play SMU.
Do they play Pitt?
That's going to be. They do play Pitt in a couple weeks.
Okay. I don't know if that's good news for them or not. By the way, Clemson's second total loss on the season, first conference, but second overall loss. And while this game wasn't nearly as bad as the Georgia game, they weren't in this game. Louisville put this game away fairly early.
They did. Yeah.
Like this was, they lost by 2 scores. This was not a game that Clemson like could have won. No, Louisville out and out just won this football game. Due to the style of the loss, I almost want to drop them, but I don't know.
You move Clemson, you got to move Pitt as well.
Well, I don't, because that's Pitt's first loss of the season.
Yeah, we got to be careful of this because of the conference championship and all that too.
That's
technically
fair.
Clemson's still in it too. Technically, Pitt is still in it too.
Are they both Pitt's third?
This is weird. Pitt has not. Oh, that's right, because Clemson plays the Citadel later. That's right. Clemson is up 2 games on Pitt. They are 5-1 in conference, but Pitt is 3-1 in conference.
Okay. But they both have.
So Clemson has. Clemson
are there any other?
Have that.
Are there any other 1-loss teams in the ACC, or is it those 4 teams?
That's it. That's it. Yep.
All right. So I think I almost feel like we have to keep Clemson and Pitt in B tier, just because that's how their conference is shaking out.
Yep, I agree. Now Kansas State, though, what do you feel about Kansas State here?
Are they like decidedly 4th in the Big 12 now?
They are decidedly 4th because they've got BYU undefeated, Iowa State 4-1, and Colorado 4-1 in conference. So,
and this was
I would agree
Kansas State's second loss in conference.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to drop Kansas State.
Yep. All right, so B tier, man, less and less teams coming in the bubble, which is
what you
standard, what it should be.
That's what it should be doing.
Which is what should be. Texas A&M, Army, Alabama, Colorado, LSU, Iowa State, Clemson, and Pitt. Now, Jared.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 teams that I think could potentially maybe wanting to maybe put into B tier, possibly.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say this, and we were kind of talking about this earlier, but I want to reset it. With all due respect to Army, love the Army story. They literally have no, we like to say quality wins. They don't even have like an average win. Army has almost literally played nobody to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I love having Army in B tier. It's a fun story. But if you look at S, A, and B tier, we only have 2 group of 5 teams currently in those 3 tiers. And it's not going to be Army. Like, spoiler alert, it's not going to be Army. We need backup teams for Boise. We need to identify some teams that we should be watching, that other people should be watching as that potential, 5th conference champion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said earlier you had 3 teams you wanted to keep an eye out for on whatever preposition goes there.
Yeah, I think there's 3 teams here to keep an eye out for. It's so interesting. I would say I think Army, obviously it was one of them, but I think the other 2.
So
because they're right there based on no, they both have 2 losses, don't they? I was going to say in UNLV's was the one that lost here. I was thinking UNLV and Tulane were 2 other teams to kind of keep an eye out for.
I think Tulane's a decent team to keep an eye out for. I don't know if I want to move them up to A tier at this point.
Or no, into B tier.
Excuse me, into B tier. Excuse me, to B tier at this point. Navy lost again this week.
They did, didn't they?
Yeah, so that makes it pretty difficult to move them up
to Rice.
To Rice. So 3 teams, Kyle. I'm gonna slide them up into B tier for now. I'm not putting them up there just for the sake of conversation.
No, wrong one. Tulane.
No,
Raging Cajuns.
No, I did. That is exactly what I meant to do.
All right.
3 teams for consideration for B tier to get some more group of 5 teams up there.
Okay.
Sam Houston State, Western Kentucky, and Louisiana Lafayette. These are my proposals to you. And we can also talk about Tulane if you want to also talk about Tulane. If that's how you want to do things.
Excuse me. Tell me a little bit about Sam Houston. Why do you have Sam Houston up here?
You want to go Sam Houston first? All right, let's pull up Sam Houston. Sam Houston Bearcats.
With a K.
With a K. They have, I think the most important takeaway here is that they are one of the big dogs in their conference right now. They have 2 losses on the year. Actually, let me go to the standings page. Hold on.
They're 3rd.
What do you mean?
Sam Houston's 3rd in their conference.
Are you sure about that?
100%. Looking at it. Western Kentucky is 4-0. Jacksonville State is 4-0. And Sam Houston, with their 1 loss to Western Kentucky, is 4-1.
All right. So, Kyle, this was all a clever ruse. Congratulations. You fell right into my trap.
All right. Awesome. I'm glad I passed the test.
Yeah. For Western Kentucky.
Okay.
Whose biggest win on the year so far is Sam Houston, who is currently number 1 in Conference USA. They have 2 losses on the year, but are unbeaten in conference play. They and Jacksonville State, who's another team I do have on the chart down here, but I went with Western Kentucky. I wanted to be decisive. Their only losses this year are a 1-point loss to Boston College. And they also opened
Tell me about their second one.
Well, they also opened the season against Alabama and got steamrolled.
Yeah. How bad was that?
It was pretty bad.
How bad? Tell the audience.
63-0.
Okay.
But someone has to go for the group of 5. A conference champion from the group of 5 has to go. These are facts. I didn't make the rules.
I still think Boise State's still the higher one.
Of course, Boise State's the higher one. We're trying to build a contingency plan in case something happens to Boise.
It's not Western Kentucky.
So
it's not Western Kentucky.
It's not Western Kentucky. It's not Sam Houston. Could it be Louisiana Lafayette? These are the Raging Cajuns. They are currently, I believe, they are number 1 in the Sun Belt West. They have 1 loss on the season and are perfect in conference. They have 2 wins over second place overall, just 1 win over second place, which would be Arkansas State in the Sun Belt West. So they seem pretty poised to be going to their conference championship game. Their 1 loss came to Tulane, which is another team we're going to talk about as a potential team. And it was it was 8 points, the 1-score loss. I'm not going to pound the table. It's not necessarily been an impressive year. Most of their wins have been pretty close. They do play Arkansas State next week, which, probably is going to decide, or almost definitely going to decide, who represents the Sun Belt West in the Sun Belt Championship game.
Yep. So I can get by with the Raging Cajuns in the bubble. I can get on your side with that.
All right. I got one of my three in. Is it time to talk about Tulane? Is that where you're at?
Talk about Tulane. Sure.
Is that your team that you're putting forward?
Like I was looking through the list here, trying to figure out like what would be another contingency plan, like you said, Jared, here, but Tulane doesn't have like the greatest, like looking at who they beat. No. They lost by 7 to Kansas State. They lost by 15 to Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. But they're unbeaten in conference.
They are unbeaten in conference. They steamrolled everybody else. Louisiana, South Florida, UAB, 14-point victory over Rice, and steamrolled Charlotte recently too. So they're taking care of business, other than the Power Four conferences that they've played against.
Yeah.
They do finish the season against Temple, Navy, who's kind of the ship's sinking with that one, and then Memphis.
Yes. Listen,
but they could potentially at the end play Army as well in their conference championship.
It does sure look like that right now. You have both Army and Navy currently in the American Conference. Navy only has one conference loss. Army doesn't have any conference losses. Neither does Tulane. That's the top of the American for you right there. Yeah, it's... I don't know, though. Do you want to move Tulane up?
Sure. Just... I mean,
listen.
What's the worst we're going to do? Move them back down to C next week?
Potentially. Also, I mean, they have A-tier logo and uniforms, and I think that deserves to be celebrated.
That's fair. All
right.
Before we talk about the next ones, we're going to take our second ad break real quick here, and then have a little bit more discussion real quick before we end the episode. So I won't mention everything that Jared said in the first one here. thesloopcast.com is where you can find all of our lovely links to the Patreon, Discord, YouTube, merch store, 7071, Spotify, and more. So again, the link is thesloopcast.com for all of your lovely links. So we're going to take this ad break and be right back.
All right. Kyle, how do you feel about Washington State? Washington.
I haven't thought much about them, so tell me a little about Washington State. I know that they're finally ranked.
They're finally,
that much I know.
They're finally ranked. They have only one loss on the year, which is to a team that is currently in our A tier, Boise.
No, as a non-Power 4 conference, I definitely think this is something to keep an eye out for.
They don't fill that fifth spot though, because they can't be conference champions.
Correct. So they would fall in under the
Independence,
the group. Oh,
essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to get in via wild card, same as Notre Dame.
Okay.
They just have to finish in the top 12.
Ooh, that's tough.
Not necessarily the top 12, because the 5 minus 12 is 7. The top 7 non-conference champions is how they would have to get in.
That's tough. And they're in the AP ranked 20th right now.
Yeah.
With them having 4 games left here, they need a lot of team chaos help.
They do.
I think they're at the very top of C tier, but they need a lot of teams. They need a lot of teams to lose.
I made the case for Washington State. Let me make the case against Washington State now.
They ain't played nobody, Paul.
They ain't played. Well, they did beat Washington.
This is true, yeah.
Not that Washington's all that good this year. They got housed by Boise. I said they lost to Boise earlier. They didn't just lose to Boise. They got housed. And just recently only beat San Diego State by 3 points. Only beat Fresno State by a score. Only beat San Jose State by 2 points. It's not a super impressive resume. Just saying.
Looking at the rest of the teams here, I don't think there's anybody else that's worth talking about here.
I was really waiting to maybe throw Memphis in there, but they lost this week. So that threw a wrench into that plan for me. So probably not Memphis. Here's one for you, Kyle. Iowa.
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I don't even entertain that. 4-2, they have 2 losses in conference, especially when you have 2 undefeateds and 2 1 losses in front of you.
Well, they're not playing for
and you don't play any of those in your final games here. So
okay,
to help you out there. So no.
Let's look at things like this real quick. 7 teams, right? 7 teams, non-conference champions. Right now, you have 1-2. Let's just say Texas, Ohio State, just because that's where they're sitting in the chart. I'm not making any predictions. No one freak out. Notre Dame, Indiana. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah, go ahead.
Tennessee, Penn State, and then either SMU or Miami. Let's just say SMU.
Mm-hmm.
Standing in between them, at least according to our chart, Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, Colorado, Iowa State. I don't know that they're better than, or I don't know that they're worse than Clemson, to be honest with you. I think the only reason why we have Clemson and Pitt up there is because of their conference situation.
Correct.
I think I'd put Colorado in over Iowa at this point.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't think it's that crazy. We'll just keep them on the left to see for now. We'll just keep them on the left to see for now.
I mean, Iowa was non-competitive in their big game that they had this year.
I agree.
They're non-competitive.
But again, we're just talking about like the bubble, right? I'm not putting them in the playoffs.
Sure.
Just talking about the bubble. I think that they're a team that could benefit from some chaos and maybe get that. Well, it wouldn't be the 12th spot. It would probably be like the 11th spot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a possibility. I'm not saying it's a likelihood. I'm saying it's a possibility.
I hear it. You know, not even entertaining them to be in a playoff bubble, but I think they are probably the you could say they're almost the right hand person probably for, especially recently, for the for Team Chaos here. Those Gamecocks here.
I have them on this list to talk about as well.
They're 5-3.
Yeah, and they're 3-3. And they're 3-3 in conference. Listen, South Carolina obviously is a very good team. But it just hasn't worked out for them this year. I mean, they almost created 2 chaoses. didn't.
They almost beat LSU. They almost beat Alabama. They got beat pretty bad to Ole Miss, but yeah, there were pretty good losses overall for South Carolina. But man, they can pull the upset against Clemson at the end of the year here and ruin Clemson's chances of being in the playoffs there.
I think that they will win that game, for the record.
I think their team chaos is sword here. Like, all right, South Carolina, I want you to take out this team here.
Yeah. I'm definitely keeping them on the left side of C here.
Yeah, but no, other than that, nobody else. I don't really see anybody else that's worth thinking about that they possibly could be in the bubble here. We're too late in the season right now. But is there anybody worth bringing down to M tier though, Jared?
I don't think so. I'd be interested to hear if you have. Is there anyone? I mean,
hear me out.
Whoa.
Hear me out.
Okay.
This is going to be crazy, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate.
I'm listening.
Or maybe not a lot of hate. What if this team loses their third game? They go 3-3 in the SEC. What if Alabama loses?
I mean, that's a conversation for next week, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just going to say that's a conversation for next week, because I think we could certainly look at Alabama or LSU as potential M tier candidates next week, but I don't know if it's worth theorizing about now, if that makes sense.
Fair.
By the way, USC lost again this week. Michigan lost again this week. Oklahoma State lost again this week, and Florida State lost again this week. Our M tier, red hot.
Florida State really thriving to try to get that number 1 pick for next year. Oh wait, that's not how this works. Sorry. You know what's great for this next week though, Jared? I know we're running a little long here in this episode than we typically do, but this week, Jared, this is the week. It is Maction. We get some Maction this week. Starting Tuesday.
How do you feel about
this episode's being released? We get Maction Tuesday and Wednesday.
Hey, Kyle.
I love it.
Yes, Jared. Speaking of, Western Michigan 4-0 in the MAC, 5-3 overall. I don't even have
the difference. 5-3.
I don't even have them on the board. I'm kidding. Like they're not even on the board.
And how many points did Western Michigan score against Ohio State?
Listen, guys, I was told that Western Michigan was terrible. This is what I was told. Turns out they're 5-3. They're in the driver's seat in the MAC right now. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, the answer to your question was 0. Zero.
Yeah. All right. Looking at this week here, Jared, like some good matchups here. Florida gave Georgia a run for their money. Will they do the same thing to Texas this week? Maybe. Georgia and Ole Miss could be a good game there. Michigan and Indiana. See how that game plays out. South Carolina or Vanderbilt could be interesting as well. Of course, Alabama at LSU is one of the prime games for this week here.
Hey, Kyle.
I think that's it. I think that's it. So I think there's some pretty good games. Pretty good games here.
What would you say was Nebraska's expectations coming into this season? I feel like they were pretty decent, right? I feel like Nebraska had some I don't think anyone was predicting them to go to the conference title game, but I think a lot of people had them finishing like 3rd or 4th in the conference.
Well, what did?
Because they just lost their third straight game. So I feel,
didn't they?
Yeah.
So according to our Pick 6 preview before the season, they predicted Nebraska to be 7th.
Okay, maybe not then.
Yeah,
listen, I was just
say so. It's not super high expectations.
No,
now
they're not meeting them.
But Indiana was tied for 17.
I was just yeah, I know. I was just trying to get an M tier. I was just trying to find another M tier. But I don't think Nebraska had the appropriate expectations to M tier them. There was a lot of hype, but I don't know if the hype was coming from legit sources. All right. I think that's it. I think that's our tier list.
So I know in last year, I know we're not doing that right now because we're not prepared to do it, nor do we have a slide for it. And that's partly my fault for not talking to you about it, Jared, earlier. But usually this is about the time that we always had the who are 4 that's in here. I don't know.
Kyle, we've been doing. I know. That's what this is.
Fair. I was thinking of a different approach for it here, but it's
and also it's 12
ranking them, like who's going to be which rank there, and who's kind of the who's going to be who in terms of our projections.
Well, I mean, we could start ranking S and A tier if you want to. That doesn't really do the projections, though, because conference champions are a thing.
Yes.
So, like, right now, we have, 1, 2, 3, and 4 in S tier in no particular order. Oregon, Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State.
I mean, that'd be like 1, 2, 5, and 6.
6 and 7.
1, 2.
Then
why 6 and 7?
No, they would be 6 and. So first off, I don't even know if that's how they're going to do it. For the record, I think it's still going to be like, I think it'd still be 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's just that whatever the 4th conference champion is, and the 3rd conference champion. So in this case, if you look at what we have right now, again, I'm not saying Georgia and Oregon are going to win their conferences. It's just that they happen to be sitting that way on the chart. If you look at the way, let's just say that our S and A are in some sort of order right now. They aren't, but for the sake of it, let's say that they are. I still think that Oregon's 1, Georgia's 2, Texas 3, Ohio State 4. I think they're still seeded, marked, labeled as 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's just that, again, using this chart as a guide, it's just that number 5 Miami would get a bye, and it would probably be BYU and not.
It would be BYU. Yes, BYU would be the one with the Big 12.
Well, it's just the highest ranked spot. I think it's just highest ranked.
It is highest ranked of the
conference champions. Yeah.
So it would be how we have it right now is Oregon, Georgia, 1, 2, 3rd Miami, 4th BYU.
I'm just saying that I think that they're still going to, in this scenario, mark Texas as number 3 and Ohio State as number 4. It's just that they won't be getting the buys. I understand that that's weird and confusing, but I think that's how they're doing it. It's just that the bye weeks are automatically going to conference champion number 1, conference champion number 2, conference champion number 3, and conference champion number 4. So whoever's ranked higher between
we'll find out,
Boise and BYU.
We'll find out this Tuesday.
Right. But whoever's ranked higher between Boise and BYU would get the bye week.
All right.
In this, if it plays out the way we have it on the board.
Sounds good. Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Maybe we may mix it up for next week. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay. Maybe we should start marking our conference champions, and I'll start brainstorming a way to distinguish the conference champions visually. I'll think of a way to do that. All right. You good?
I'm good.
Kyle's corner.
Yeah. Ohio State wide receivers. Ohio State wide receivers again, 2 weeks in a row doing really well in the NFL. I think I saw three of them had 2 touchdowns. What was it? JSN, Wilson, and McLaurin.
Okay.
All had 2 touchdowns, and J.K. Dobbins had 2 touchdowns on the ground as well too. So some big games for former Ohio State players, and prayers up for Olave, and hopefully he's okay after that huge hit to the head after coming back from a concussion as well too. So
yeah,
I hope everything's all right with him. Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else in Kyle's corner?
I think that's it. I know we're over on time. We'll just go ahead and end it there.
Okay. Tonight's ending music, I've never played this band before, so this is a new band for everyone listening. And maybe if you're new here, we don't actually play the music on the YouTube version of the show, just an FYI. But there is a link down in the show notes where you can go listen to the band. You can go listen to the song and maybe give them a follow while you're at it. And if you're listening to the podcast version of this, you are going to hear the song. But there still is a link down in the show notes for you to still click the link and go follow the band. Tonight's ending music will be by a band called 4 Times Louder. That's 4 spelled out, times spelled out. Just it's not like 4X. Just letting you know. 4 Times Louder. So with all that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course, support your local podcasters. Once again, name of this band, 4 Times Louder.